What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another market update, and this is one you do not want to miss. Hakes Lot number 232. Those auctions just ended last night, and I'm putting this video together for Friday morning. This big CGC announcement being acquired by Blackstone took over my day today, but I'm going to go ahead and put this video together for Friday morning, and there were some absolutely epic items in this auction, as you can already see right here with the rocket firing prototype Fett that we're going to talk about. Before I dig into this too much more, I want to again say thank you to all my Patreon supporters. I've got some great supporters, Technomancer, Gary. Thank you again for re-upping even higher your monthly contribution to my channel. So, but all of my Patreon supporters, I really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and dig right in. We have got a ton to go through, so it's going to be a long video. But another rocket firing Fett sold on Hakes auctions, and it was an absolute beauty, as you can see here. It was graded 85 by AFA CIB, and this one was unpainted, and this one had the L slot. Now, I believe, I'm not positive on this, but I believe the L slot is considered a little bit more rare than the J slot for the rocket firing Fett. And here's a close-up for those of you who have not ever seen one of these in detail, but you can see the rocket firing mechanism on the back, and this is the L-shaped slot. There's also a J slot that I think was a little bit later, if memory serves. And there's the rocket that would have been propelled out had Kenner continued on with making the rocket firing Fett. And this one was unpainted, and it sold for a big number. All of these numbers include the 18% buyer's premium that Hakes charges. I'm going to put a link in the description to this video to my Lot 231 auction that talks about how to bid on Hakes items and some of the other expenses you're going to incur if you decide to bid, in addition to shipping and taxes and everything else. But the closing price was $165,000, $165,200. So a big number, but just in November of 2019, another L slot. Well, it looks like a J slot. Is that a J or an L? Let's see. Bear with me here. No, this is a J slot. Okay, so the one that just sold is an L slot. So the J slot, my guess is that the J slot must have come first, because this one actually went for more money, even though it was painted, and you can see the picture of it here. So this one was slightly higher grade. The one that just sold was 85, but it was unpainted. This one was 85 plus, but was also already had the factory paint on it, or the sample paint on it. That one sold for $185,850. So I'm assuming that means that the J slot is the earlier version, and then they switched over to the L slot. But I don't know. So, the price is a little bit lower. It was a little bit lower grade, but it was unpainted, and so to me, I would rather have the unpainted prototype rather than the painted. But I know nothing about rocket firing Fetts in terms of which one's more expensive and all that kind of thing. But either way, it was a really big number, and I just wanted to show you the old one from 2019 just for comparison. I've got a bunch of other stuff here, so it's going to be a long video. Another one that was in this auction was an engineering pilot, Luke Farmboy. So this is a true engineering pilot, meaning that it was marked on the bottom of the feet, most likely, as an engineering pilot. It was graded 75 plus. That one sold for $3,300 and change. As you guys know, if you're a longtime follower of the channel, I have an unmarked engineering prototype, so engineering pilot, and mine sold for when I bought it, I paid a lot less than this. So you can see that it makes a big difference having a verified engineering pilot versus an unmarked one, which is what my CIB statement says. But still, nevertheless, a pretty big number, but not nearly as high as I would have expected. Now here's a number that to me was complete insanity. This was an AFA 85 vinyl cape Jawa, but there's a lot of Jawas out there, vinyl cape Jawas out there, and this closing price of $24,000 and change is massive. And everyone in the Facebook groups, or the 12-back groups, things like that, they all thought that this number was pretty insane. I would have guessed somewhere in the $17,000 to $18,000 range, somewhere in that ballpark. But this one sold all the way as high as $24,000 and change. There were not many good deals to be found, folks, in this auction. I had a number of items that I was planning on or considering bidding on, and they all blew way past my number. A lot of numbers went way past just recent sales that I've seen items sell recently with the exact same card, exact same figure, exact same grade, yet it's still sold way higher here. And I think part of that is, this is my guess. I think part of that is because a lot of these big Hakes and Vectis and things like that, they attract the whales, the guys that have big, deep pockets for collectibles, who want to park money in high grade, very rare collectibles. And those guys, they don't have time to surf eBay. All right, they're not a loser like me where they're surfing eBay every 2 seconds looking for something. And there's a trust factor dealing with Hakes, I think, for a lot of these big whale guys that, they can call their representatives and, they put in bids for them, things like that. So, it just attracts a different kind of buyer, Hakes and Vectis and things like that you're not going to see on Facebook. They're not trolling Facebook groups. They're not, for the most part, they're not trolling Facebook groups or eBay. They just want to get their stuff during these big once or twice a year type events, and they're willing to pay more for it to deal with Hakes and the recognized name of Hakes. So I think that's part of what you see in a lot of these prices. But a part of it is just the collectibles market in general is just crazy. So there's a couple of factors that I think affected it. A lot of other pre-production items in this lot, though. This was a Villain 3-pack set, and this was a sample. This had the square box round punch sample, and so it differs than the final version where it has this round punch. This is a factory sample, similar to my modern 3-pack sample. This is kind of prototype packaging, so to speak. This was graded 80. This one sold for $15,400, an absolutely massive number. I would say, I don't know. I don't follow the vintage 3-packs or the prices, but I would guess probably in the neighborhood of 250% higher than if this had been a standard market item at the same grade. So they paid up for the pre-production, but it's pretty cool to see kind of a pre-production, very rare item like this. Another pre-production item. This was a Sand People, but this was a sign-off. So this was engineering sign-off for signing off on the packaging, very similar to some of the modern stuff that I have. I certainly couldn't afford this, but the engineers, you can see the tape on the side here where I'm highlighting with my cursor. It's got just some final notes for production from Kenner engineers, and that one sold for big money too. Let's see, that one sold for $4,900. It was a little bit under the value estimate, according to Hakes, but I mean, that's a really rare item to find a 20-back pre-production. This is now, I'm showing this one. This one was one that I actually put a bid in on it, but it glitched and it didn't recognize the bid in time. And so it's not a big deal to me, but this is probably the only one I was really considering, towards the end of the auction end times. This was actually the only one that I thought was worth bidding on, and I actually did bid on it, but it didn't go through for whatever reason. But this was a 20-back C3PO AFA 80 plus, so a nice high grade, and including the buyer's premium, that sold for $520. I thought that was a pretty fair price, quite honestly, for that high of a grade. I think it probably went kind of low because the sticker is right there on the Star Wars logo, and Hakes attracts a different kind of buyer, as I mentioned, and they probably were turned off maybe by having that sticker right there on top of the logo. But that's a really high grade, 80 plus grade, and it sold for $520 after the buyer's premium. I thought that was a great deal, whoever got that. And like I said, I did try to bid on it, but it just didn't go through for some reason. Another sign off. This is another pre-production sign off. This time for a Yoda. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a catalog sample. So this was a sample used in the catalogs, the Kenner catalogs. It was only graded 50, but it's a Yoda, and that one sold for big money, $2,700. Absolutely gorgeous. You can see on the back here, it's got some kind of internal engineering notes there as to where it's going to appear in the catalog, what page number and things like that. So pretty cool. Another pretty cool kind of pre-production or photograph sample type of item. This is another one that's a QC sample. Here's the QC sticker on this TIE Fighter pilot, and that one was graded 75, and that one sold for almost $2,600 after the buyer's premium. Anything pre-production, you're going to be paying big money, and it's just kind of cool to see all these different kind of stickers and engineering notes and things like that on these vintage items. You just don't see these often, and this auction was chock full of prototypes. Here is another absolutely incredible item that you will hardly ever see. I think there's less than 20 of these known to exist, as far as I know. I mean, I've heard that anecdotally. I have no evidence of that. But this is the special action figure stand, but this has the Empire Strikes Back packaging. And I've only seen one other one of these. And this one had all the figures encased with it, with all the, paperwork and so forth. It was graded 75 plus qualified. That sold for $36,000. It came in almost double what the estimate was from Hakes before the auction started. $36,000. So this is a very, very rare item. And like I said, I believe there's less than just a handful of these known to exist. But pretty cool to see. It's just, you never see this box art for the action display stand on the Empire Strikes Back logo. It's just a really cool item. Another one, this one was a Montgomery Ward catalog 4-pack, but it was a quality control for the 4-pack. So this was a sample within Kenner, marked off by one of the engineers for a 4-pack that was going to go to Montgomery Ward, these 4-pack mailaways. So just an absolutely insanely rare item. And this one went for over double what the estimate was. It sold for almost $44.54 was the closing price on that one. So just an absolutely incredible pre-production item there. Another one that I'm going to step out of the camera in just one second, but this is a pre-production C-3PO. And what's interesting is that this has a reddish brown body, torso, and head, but clear arms. And, these early C-3POs, they used all kinds of different colors for the plastics that were then vac metallized, because it didn't really matter what kind of plastic it was, because it was all vac metallized with that gold silver paint, or gold paint. And I want to make a distinction between this item and what I have. This is a Lily Letty unpainted overstock. So this is after the factory was closing in the Mexican Lily Letty factory. They just never got around to painting this one. So that's a lot different than a pre-production one where it was just never painted to begin with and was, kind of an early sample, and just insanely rare. This one sold for $23,600. A really incredible item with those clear limbs and the red of the body. It just really pops, and absolutely incredible. It was graded 80 by AFA. So $23,600 for that one. Another one that I had an eye on, but this one went for way higher than I expected. I was expecting kind of 2,000 to 2,500-ish, which is where the last few have sold. But this was a Bausch first shot prototype. And this one had, unpainted limbs and the dark brown body, unpainted helmet. Really cool, graded 80. And this one sold for $42.58. So another big number. And I think that number is a lot higher than almost, well, it's not double. I think the last one I saw sold for around $2,400 on Facebook. And I can't tell you what the plastic color difference is, because some high-end collectors, they pay more for different kind of strange colors to the plastics, like that 3PO I just showed you, versus one like this is maybe a little bit more standard. But I couldn't tell you which one the other Bausch was versus this one. It may have been incomplete, but this had all first shot prototype accessories plus the actual figure, and that one sold for $42.58. There were a number of different carded salesman samples. If you want to see more of these, you can go check out the Blacked Out Ewoks on YouTube. He owns a couple of these types of items. This one was a Lando skiff guard on an IG-88 Revenge of the Jedi sticker ESB card. So an absolutely awesome item. And wow, I mean, look at that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And so what happened was, before Kenner went into final production for the Return of the Jedi figures, they would take these figures, put them on the old card backs, and then sales distributors or whatever, they could use those to either as a mock-up to see what it would look like on the card with the blister, make sure the blister fit okay, or they could take them to, their partners, their retail partners, their sales channels, to show what the new figures are going to look like. So, but this was a sales sample. It only graded 60, but it sold for $14,278. That is a massive number. I think part of that is because of, you got two pretty big characters. Lando's a pretty big, character, but he's on an IG-88 Revenge card, which is a very popular, very expensive card. So, if you have like and I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a second where lesser characters on lesser card backs, you're not going to pay anywhere near this price. But if you have significant characters in the Star Wars universe on high demand card backs, you're going to be paying big money. And this is an example of that. On the other end of the spectrum, which is still a high number, don't get me wrong, we had the Atst driver sales sample on an Admiral Akbar card. And this was rated 80 plus, so much higher grade, but it sold for way less, almost $9,000 less. This one sold for $51.92, which was actually, I think, a pretty good deal for given what these sales samples typically go for, even on Facebook. That's a pretty good number. And but you know, again, it's lesser characters, lesser card back, a more recent card back instead of an ESB card back. So that's really what's affecting the prices too for a lot of these. Another example of one that sold for even less. This was a Tebow on a Emperor's Royal Guard card back. This one was only a 40 grade, so quite a bit lower grade than the last one we just showed you. But that one sold for 4,200 and change. So you know, these kind of items are well outside of my collecting budget or what I'd like to even come close to spending on them. But it's cool to see these, you know. So that's really what this video is. It's kind of like just a kaleidoscope of what the other half collect. You know, this is not the kind of stuff I collect or most of my viewers collect, but you know, Blacked Out Ewoks, he's got a couple of samples like this, and I just thought he'd like to see this, especially since he owns some. Here's another one that was really cool, and the price on this one I thought was great. This was a Weequay on a Revenge Sticker Zuckuss. That one sold for 3,200. It was only a 40. It only had a blister score of a 30. So, you know, you run a little risk there that thing falls off the card, but it was clear. And that was probably this, in terms of these samples, that was probably the steal of this auction lot, was this one, the Weequay on the Zuckuss Empire Strikes Back card. That was a really nice item. We got a couple of, this miss card was just, I mean, I was drooling. I really wanted this one. This was a Darth Vader miss card, but it's on a Chewbacca card. So you got two of the biggest characters in the Star Wars universe combined on one card back, and it's a foreign card back. It's a Palatoy card back. 75 plus was the grade. That one sold for $5,800 and change. Just an absolutely epic item. I'll zoom in on this one just so you can take. I stared at this one many. I can't tell you how many times I did this click that I just did right here. It just looks amazing. I was hoping it would stay, I don't know, in the twos. Which is what the value code was for you. They put the range at 2 to 5. This sold towards, you know, even above that. And that was the case for most of the items in this auction lot, just given the collectibles environment. Most of the items that I had on my true watch list, not the watch list for this video, they sold well outside of anything I was willing to pay. But that was a nice item. Now, this is another one that I considered, but I didn't go for it. And this was a backwards R2-D2, so just a packaging error. I just thought that, yeah, you know, it wasn't exciting enough to me to warrant the price for it, but it didn't sell that high, though. It sold for $650. This was a yellowed blister. There was also a Death Star droid that had a clear blister. That one ended up selling for double what I expected or what I was willing to pay for it. But they had the R2-D2 as well as a Death Star droid, both high grade, and both packaged backwards on Return of the Jedi cards. But this one sold for $649. I can't remember what the Death Star droid is, what it sold for, but it was crazy money. I think it was $1,600 something in there. I didn't put that on this video. We got some other just amazing items here. This is a pre-production Nien Nunb Power of the Force proof card. Obviously, Nien Nunb never made it onto the Power of the Force line, but you see these proof cards for those characters come up. And when they do come up, they go for big money. This one sold for $11,682. So just another Power of the Force proof card for a character that was never produced in the final retail run of the Power of the Force line. Those things go for crazy money. And this was graded 90, you know, so you're going to get massive money for anything like that. Let's see, next. There was a Canadian Yak. This sold right in line with what I expected. Power of the Force on the Kenner Canada Power of the Force Yak face. This one sold for $13,732. I mean, there's some listed on eBay for that right now that are actually, I think, graded higher than this or about the same. So this one went, while it went above the Hakes estimate, I think that's probably in line with where they've been selling. Not a massive difference in price on that one. Let's see what else we got. This was probably, you know, for those high-end collectors that are out there, this was probably the steal. This is not me, but this is probably the steal of the Hakes auction, in my opinion. A carded Vlix, which there's not many of. Vlix was, you know, the Brazilian Glassleet Vlix character. There's not many of these out there, less than probably a dozen. This was graded 60 by AFA. It had the blister support. The estimate was $35,000 to $50,000. That was the estimate before the auction. I thought it was going to be closer to 50. This one sold at $23,627. So it's interesting to me that a vinyl cape Jawa, while admittedly very high grade, sold for more than the Vlix. That makes no sense to me. The Vlix is by far a much more rare, much more desirable item from a you know, high-end collecting standpoint. So I cannot believe that this sold for less than a vinyl cape Jawa on a, you know, a standard 12-back card. It's just, that blows my mind. And, you know, again, these are all crazy numbers, but whoever bought this got a great deal, I think, and they're probably going to double up their money, and, you know, very, very quickly on that. Another cool item that I was watching, but kind of went outside of my budget, was this first shot Protype size from another droids character. It had a Protype figure, plus the actual, you know, cloth goods was framed next to it. It was a very desirable item. I was kind of half watching that. You can see it was a dated Protype, so it didn't have it wasn't one that had no date stamps on it, which would be even more expensive, I think, than what this one was sold for. Molded blue arms, you know, 80 grade. But that one sold for $33.83. I thought that number was actually pretty good. I mean, again, well outside of anything I could afford, but that I think was a good steal for whatever high-end collector ended up getting that one. And the last one I did want to get, I had to include one bootleg item because this number was much higher than all the bootleg collectors expected. All the other bootlegs, there was some carded Uze, there was some loose Uze. All of those came in well below estimates, but this one came in well above estimate, and this is the Boba Fett tax, loud and clear right here. This was an AFA qualified 40, so not a high grade, which you're not going to find many high grades for these Hungarian Boba Fetts just because of the way the blister works. They just get bent up and dinged and things like that, but this was a qualified 40, but still mint on card Hungarian Boba Fett, so a very, very desirable item. But, you know, I think the bootleg group members, a lot of them were expecting kind of in that 4 range, maybe 5 at the very upper end. That sold for $64.90. So that was really the only bootleg that came in above estimate. All the other Uzes, the mint on card Uze, Turkish Uzes, and there was one loose graded qualified Uze that I was considering. All of those came in well below estimates, but this one was the only one that really jumped out and I thought was worth showing. But I mean, what an amazing lot. Hakes really outdid themselves, and the totals from the auction were pretty incredible. Let's see if I can find the article while I have you here. There were just some unbelievable numbers from this. And let's see, they had some comic book sales, but, you know, they announced the rocket firing Fett. You know, it's not a rocket, that really wasn't a record price in my opinion, but the total sales were in the neighborhood of over $3 million. So it blew past the number from the auction this past fall, the lot 231. So anyway, I hope you wanted to see how the other half lives in terms of what they buy, and this is the kind of stuff they get. But really amazing items in this lot, and Hakes has already announced that they're planning an auction for the October-November 2021 timeframe. So start saving your money now, because I'm sure there's going to be even some more awesome items in that auction. So if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing if you are new. If you are an existing subscriber and you stuck with me this long, thank you so much for watching. I look forward to being back very soon. I just got in this afternoon some awesome items from Collector Archive Services. 3 items got finished with grading, so I'm going to try and film that tomorrow, and we'll take a look at that this weekend, hopefully. But we'll be back very soon, and thanks again for watching.